plastic action figures, the final frontier. Hello again, friends. Today I'm taking a look at McFarlane James T. KIRK from Star Trek, the original series. Now, the sculpt on this guy, it's really, really good. Pretty much. I mean, that head sculpt really looks like William Shatner. I have no complaints with it. They even got a great job on his hair. That way it curves there a little bit. Like, that's how his hair was in the show. I mean, there's this cool texture on the costume, and they sculpted the braids. These are rank insignias, actually, in Star Trek, the original series. And they sculpted the bell bottoms on the pants, and pretty much everything that's sculpted should be sculpted. I like all the little lines in the boots, and it's a pretty much perfect sculpt. It looks like Captain Kirk. They've got folds in the uniforms. It looks super realistic. It has this little texture pattern to it I just love. The only real complaint I have is the Delta, the Starfleet emblem there. I mean, these were patches sewn onto the uniforms in the show, and this is like really raised. Like, you would think this was like a next generation type badge on there if you didn't know any better, but I mean, it probably should have been like a decal, but maybe, I don't know. It's way too textury too. I don't know. That's a minor complaint. Other than that, the sculpt is really perfect. I love the face especially. And speaking of the face, let's start talking about the paint. So, Captain Kirk had kind of lighter blondish hair sometimes in the show. I mean, it's always brown, but sometimes he has like this lighter streak to it. You know what I mean? It's shiny sometimes, and that's not really reflected here on the toy. But the rest of the paint on the face is really good. Like, it looks so realistic and lifelike. Like, that skin tone is pretty much perfect. And, you know, it's something you don't even notice because it's so perfect. It just looks right. I also like the gold they did on his insignia. The line work on here, the collar, super clean. Like, it's a little off the sculpted line in the back, but like, just look at the front. Like, you don't even really think about that being painted because it's just perfect. It just looks like the character. And I like there's gold paint on the rank braids down here. I like how the boots have a glossier black to show their different material. Pretty much good paint work all around, except for maybe the eyes. Like, he doesn't seem to have any eye whites, like if we look real close. Although it kind of works. I mean, the eyebrows and eyes look like they're digitally printed on instead of painted, but I mean, in real life, his eyes would be like kind of, they would have white parts, right? But this works from a reasonable distance, like just a foot away. That looks like a perfect paint job on the face. So I got no real complaints with the paint or the sculpt, except for the badge there really being so raised. Articulation, on the other hand, I definitely have a few things to say about. So, first of all, he has a ball joint at the head, and you would kind of expect a ball joint to, move like a ball joint, right? But this does not. I mean, you can get a little bit side to side, but up and down? Forget about it. So this is effectively just a cut joint, which you can spin his head all the way around if you want crazy Kirk, but that's it. Next up, the shoulders, they get, hinge and swivel, and they rotate, and they can go pretty much to 90, but I think you see the first big problem here, which is how they chose to implement the shoulder joint into the torso by, like, putting it below this big sculpted ridge so that it looks like I don't know what this is. It looks like he's dislocating his shoulder, and his arm is popping out of his side every time you raise it up that way. So that is not very good, right? But coming down further on the arm, he has Marvel Legends style elbows with hinge and swivel, which is kind of nice because I did not expect to see that on a McFarlane figure. Next up, the wrists are on hinged ball joints. So, I mean, you can see them in there. They have a hinge and they can rotate, so that's good. So you can get this movement and you can rotate it to get this movement. Except for the fact that you can't, because the cuff is sculpted over, so like you can start to bend it and then like that's it. That's all the motion you really get. I mean, better than nothing, I guess, but a lot like the head, these are essentially swivels at the hands. I don't know why you chose this is 2 points so far, where the way you put the implementation of the articulation in there, the way you implemented the articulation, I should say, pretty much ruined it. Like it breaks up the sculpt horribly at the shoulders when it doesn't have to, because other companies are able to do that shoulder articulation without making it look all crazy. And then you blocked yourself on the wrists here. I mean, you can get a little bit better on the right hand, but the left, because I think maybe because of the way it's sculpted, like it's just not, I mean, go up and down a little, and that's it, really. Anyways, Next thing you'll notice, there's no line here for a joint at the abdomen or diaphragm or whatever. So you're kind of assuming that these have rubber torso pieces for the uniforms there, like the old Diamond Select Art Asylum figures, and that there's a joint in there, but no, there is not. I mean, there kind of is, like, he seems to have a twist a little higher than the waist, but it doesn't want to cooperate. And then no diaphragm at all, really. I mean, it feels like kind of a loose cut, but definitely not a diaphragm joint. Not like the old Art Asylum figures, which we'll see later when we do comparisons. So far, not very good. But then he has these DC Universe classic style hips from Mattel. Or, it's also similar to what Diamond Select has done with like the Ghostbusters figures recently. And they get very good range forward, 90 degrees, and they go pretty good back. Not to 90, but, pretty good. And then really good doing the splits. Not that you really need KIRK to do that, but it's good to have, I guess. Then there's no swivel at the hip, unfortunately, but he does have hinged and swiveled knees, and they're also on ratchets. Now, why the knees have ratchets when they could have just been held in place with friction? I don't know, but that's how McFarlane chose to do it. Ratchets. Next up, the feet. There's nothing at the top of the boot, in case you were wondering, but the feet are on what seems like hinge and pivot Marvel Legends style joints, and they pretty much go that far. Never mind. They looked kind of like hinge and pivot joints, but as you can see now, they are just ball joints that really don't get much range. I mean, you can try to get some more range, but you're going to pop the foot off. So they swivel all the way around, and they really don't go up or down that much or side to side too much, unless you want to pop the joint off. So the articulation could have been a lot better, McFarlane, but what's there is, mediocre, I guess. And now, here was Captain KIRK in the package. Okay, can't talk like that forever. Anyways, his packaging has a card back with the command gold yellow color that KIRK wears, so it makes it easy to spot him on the pegs. And on the back, we get a picture of the Picard figure that's also out with this guy, and I'll review him shortly. And I've never seen this before. Pictures of characters they're gonna do figures of soon, but this guy came out a while ago, so where are the Spock and Michael Burnham figures? I don't know. And then we got a roleplay phaser from Discovery. And on the bottom of the bubble, it's kind of weird. There's this, like, hemicircle bulge here for, it looks like the perfect spot to put a stand, but the black stand is way back there, which we'll take a look at when we get to accessories. But the back of this bubble is just like taped onto the card, so it's kind of hard to rip off, and I'm just gonna cut this thing open real quick. Wow, is that good enough? Looks good enough. So I got the tray out, obviously, and that hemicircle kind of lets it stand up on the tray alone, which is kind of weird. But I also just noticed, after I took the figure out, the back of the card art has this, like, stripey thing that is blue and is totally supposed to be the transporter effect. It's not exactly like it, but, that's kind of what they were going for, I guess. So that's kind of nice. Anyways, let's get KIRK out of his tray. What the heck? Where's the twist tie? It's up front, but not in the back. How do you get this thing out? What the heck, McFarlane? What's going on here? I don't get this. I feel like I gotta risk damaging the figure just to cut this stupid twist tie, because it won't, I can't get my fingers back there. The twist tie doesn't go all the way around. It just stops at the holes. This thing's just held in with tape. Looks like Scotch tape that I get. It's kind of cheap packaging, but it's easier to get this out than just get Captain KIRK out. What the heck, McFarlane? Okay, KIRK's in that tray pretty tightly, but that's not so much of an issue as the fact that that twist tie, you really literally have to cut it to get it out. Usually I cut the twist ties, but I cut them in the back. I don't think the twist tie was very good in the packaging, but it looked nice on the outside at least. For accessories, KIRK comes with this cool little stand. It's got the Star Trek logo on it, a Type 2 hand phaser, an open communicator, a Type 3 phaser, aka phaser rifle, and finally an alternate right hand. The right hand KIRK comes packaged with is sculpted for holding the hand phaser, which is called a Type 2 phaser in case you didn't know. And as you can see, it gets in there real good, great grip, although it is really tight to get in and out, I will say. But I also love that it's got these great silver details on it, and I also love the size relative to his hand. Like the old Art Asylum ones were kind of small, and I guess we'll look at that when we get to the scale comparison time, but this is definitely a chunky little phaser. His left hand is pretty much meant to hold the communicator, it seems, and it looks like you can just slide it into his little fingers back there and try and get his thumb on top of it, and yeah, it looks perfect, and now it fits in really great. They sculpted his hand perfectly to hold this thing, and I really do like the details on it. Like, they sculpted all the little grid lines in the gold flip-up top part, although this doesn't really flip closed, so it would have been nice to get like a closed version, McFarlane, but you know, the quality you did on this is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. The left hand does also kind of hold the phaser rifle pretty good if you want to use that as the trigger finger, but it's not really meant to. That's really meant for the alternate right hand, which we'll pop on right now. That is, we will if we can get the old hand off this. I'm going to break this stupid... there we go. Other right hand with the wider grip just pops on a little easily, not really easily. Kind of difficult. Is it on? I think it's on. I wish there was a more distinct pop when you switch the hands, but I guess it's on okay now. Anyways, it's nowhere near as hard to slide this into his right hand as it was to slide the Type 2 hand phaser, and he looks pretty cool holding it. Although I will say, the details on it, although they're mostly good, the one thing they really messed up on is the, copper piping thing, the spiral things in the middle. So they rotate, which they didn't have to do, because that didn't really happen on the show, but the prop that they built for Where No Man Has Gone Before, these thingies did rotate, although I wish McFarlane hadn't done that because these just pop out so easily. Now, since they're popped out, let's take a look at them, because this is my biggest issue with this thing, really, with the whole KIRK figure. These things are supposed to be spirals, or maybe not spirals, but they're supposed to have these, lines all throughout. They're supposed to look like tubing, not flat tubing, and you can kind of see it in there because there's supposed to be this copper piping behind transparent glass or plastic or something, and yeah, the lines are in there, but this thing just looks brown and smooth from a distance. And then on top of the fact that they actually built the action feature in that it can rotate, the quote-unquote action feature, it just pops out all the time, and I wish they didn't, because the rest of this thing is so well done. All the details are painted. Everything that should be there is correct. They even got the little targeting reticle right there. I mean, they could have skipped out on that or painted that, but it's actually sculpted. I mean, it probably shouldn't be sculpted. It probably should be painted, but everything on this is really accurate except these damn copper pipes. What was wrong with you, McFarlane? What were you thinking? That was a bad idea. Anyways, the last thing KIRK comes with is that base. It's only got one peg on it. It's got a glossy Star Trek logo. I like that. And on the back, it's got nothing. Not even a made in China type thing, which is kind of refreshing. KIRK only has a peg hole in his left foot, and you put him on there, and it's a base. It works. I like it. Now, Captain KIRK stands pretty much at exactly 7 inches tall, just like the packaging said, which makes him look pretty good with McFarlane's Patrick Stewart from the same line that I'll also be reviewing, but way too big to fit in with any 6-inch figures like DCUC Batman, Marvel Legends Spider-Man, or Star Wars Black Series figures, unfortunately. But he does look pretty good next to the old Art Asylum Star Trek figures. Speaking of which, now's the perfect time to compare this KIRK to my formal dress KIRK from the Art Asylum / Diamond Select days. I think Diamond Select bought out Art Asylum. It's all kind of confusing, really, but this old figure is from 2008, and what a long way we've come in 10, 11 years. When you look at those head sculpts, I think on the sculpt alone, it's pretty clear that the McFarlane version wins, right? That green Diamond Select Captain KIRK did come with a bigger communicator on the right here, but strangely the phaser was just tiny compared to the McFarlane one. McFarlane's on the left, Diamond Select on the right. Now, although the McFarlane Captain KIRK definitely has a better sculpt than anything from the Art Asylum or Diamond Select days, it's kind of hard for me to say if he's the better figure overall. I mean, he definitely comes with some more accessories, so he's got that going for him, but he's got some wonky articulation choices, and it's really hard for me to say if this is the best KIRK figure ever, especially since I don't have any, standard uniform Art Asylum stuff. But he is a pretty good Captain KIRK figure. I don't like, those points in articulation I mentioned, but the sculpt and the paint are very excellent. Comes with some cool accessories, even if they kind of botched one of them. So I do recommend you go out and get him. So until next time, peace out, YouTube.